All right, the too long didn't read is strength is leveled by walking while overweight or at least 90% overweight. The endurance levels up by walking and sprinting. Walking doesn't give you very much, but sprinting gives you a lot. Then you have health, which is leveled up by strength and endurance leveling up, as well as vitality getting points. The other thing to keep in mind is strength has diminishing returns, so don't just go into a raid, chuck grenades, and melee the shit out of people. Alright? If you want more info on how I got to all of this, watch the rest of the video. Alright, guys and gals, this is Northman, and we are back with another testing Tarkov. This time we are talking about health, strength, endurance, and vitality. We're going to start with vitality because this one I actually struggled to actually get definitive data on, so it's fairly quick. But what vitality does is decrease chance of bleeding, decrease chance of dying by losing a limb, increase health regen in battle, and elite level is all bleeding stops spontaneously. How to raise this is taking damage and blood loss. So when you get hurt, vitality goes up, and the best thing about that is it affects health as well. So as long as you're keeping on top of it, you don't lose limbs and stuff. It's a pretty nice way of just passively getting points for health. I'm still trying to figure out the best way of getting info on this, but I'm working on it. Next up is strength. Now, strength I did quite a bit of testing on. So I actually went into a raid and did my step method, found 2 points that were 135 steps away from each other, and I used that just as a repetitive movement. For every 0.26, approximately 0.267 for change in strength here, we were getting a 0.133 in health. Running showed no increase in strength even while overweight. Throwing a grenade, my initial tests found about a 0.133 average, which is pretty good. And then what I did then is I went and walked on all the different maps while overweight, as you can see at 42.1 out of 40. And then I calculated by distance traveled how much I actually gained in strength, what that equated to per kilometer, and that averaged out to about 1.2057, which is interesting because on the wiki it shows a 1.43. So either my data is off, or I didn't have a big enough sample size, or theirs is outdated. Now, getting into grenades, diminishing returns has been something that everyone's been talking about. So I went through and threw 16 grenades in 2 offlane raids, and what I found was, on average, I was getting a 0.14375, which we'll call it 0.144, which is about what they found for running or walking while overweight. So my data kind of flipped from them on grenades versus walking, which I found interesting. But the diminishing turn I was actually able to show here. So if you look here, we have a pattern of 0.2, 0.2, 0.1 for the first 3 grenades, and that repeats. And then we go 0.2, 0.1, and that repeats once, ish. So as you see, there we go, there we go. And then we get 0.2 again, and then we have 3.1s in a row, 0.2 and 3.1s. I'm sure if I continued throwing, this would have slowly gotten to a point where it just steady stated. I'd imagine I was probably there, but I don't know for sure. It'd probably take about 30 grenades to be definitively able to say it's steady state, just on how it seems to be somewhere between a 0.15 and a 0.2 when it starts, and then it just is steadily decreasing there. But the average over 16 grenades was pretty clean. I did find that the diminishing return on grenades is definitely there. The one I wasn't able to prove, and this is just because when my buddies and I play, we go play. I don't do a lot of testing while we're playing, and so I haven't tested out melee. I really need to test out melee by going in and having someone else there. It's kind of difficult to test an offline raid. I'm sure I could figure out a way to get it to some degree, but really the control we need for getting a good value for it, I can't really do on my own. But going back, we're now going to be looking at endurance. And now endurance, this is another good one. Increases stamina, decreases jump stamina drain, increases breath hold time, and decreases breath recovery time, with the elite level giving it plus 150% stamina and minus 500% breath recovery time. Now, this isn't 150% on top of the 150% that you get just by the natural increases. They're just displaying it that way on the wiki. Travel distance through sprinting, that's your methodology to getting this to level up. And I showed that pretty definitively. My initial testing showed, I'll just come down to the summary. My initial summary showed that for sprinting overweight, for every 0.3 in endurance, we were getting about a 0.067 in health. Now, for running at 98%, for every 0.3 in endurance, we're going to 0.1, and running at 20% overweight, it was 0.3 or 20% weighted. It was 0.3 gets us 0.05. Now, not entirely sure why these bottom two aren't lining up. It seems like there's definitely a better return on being mostly overweight. All right, now we're on health. Health decreases chance of fractures, increases offline regen, decreases energy consumption, and decreases dehydration rate. Elite level damage absorption and poison immunity level, these are both awesome. And with the Talking Tarkov podcast that was today, we actually see that poison is soon to be implemented. They were talking about cultists, and Nikita mentioned a poison dagger that they'd be using. So that's pretty cool, and keep your eyes out for that. Um, but getting into really what we found, I should have recorded my health increases while I was doing the diminishing return with the grenades to see if I could get a better number here, but it came out pretty clean, so I'm not too worried about it. So walking overweight gets you a 0.26. I found for average to a 0.13. So what that equates to is for um, every 0.1, you're going to get 0.05. That's really how that comes out. And then for every 0.3, you're getting a 0.067 on average for sprinting overweight. And this is in endurance. And then grenades, 0.133 for strength gets you a 0.2. So for every 3 grenades, I was getting about 0.2 on health, which is pretty good. Um, running speed at or running at 98% overweight or weight capacity got a zero point 0.3 for endurance and a 0.1 for health. And then running at 20% got 0.3 for endurance, but only a 0.05. And that was pretty clean. So I'm curious to see. I should really look at doing more tests on this and see what happened in between there. But I've been working on this one for a while. I want to get it out to you guys. Really, the data I've been seeing is pretty similar to what's on the wiki, and that's always a great thing to go off of. Your diminishing returns is definitely a factor, and I would wager it's a factor with melee weapons, just because this wipe has been heavily using melee weapons to boost strength. I've seen a lot of people doing it. I've actually ran into someone doing it while I was doing all this testing. Thought it was kind of funny, but they didn't want to be friends and they shot me. Thankfully, that was during my vitality testing. um, and yeah, overall, biggest thing to keep in mind is travel overweight, sprint when you can, and get that health up that way. You're gonna probably level endurance quite a bit faster than you level strength, just because strength requires that um, walking speed as well as being at least 90% in overweight capacity. And yeah, that's all I got on this one. If you guys have any questions, leave comments down below, and I'll catch you on the next one. Vitality is going to end up being its own video once I figure out a solid way of testing that.